see some guy with a beard run up to the wall, take 3 or 4 steps along the wall like a ninja in a kung fu movie, and then try to kick somebody. Where is this guy?
At one point in time, Zabit Magomedsharipov was the hottest prospect around, and by a mile I see him. As a champion, knowing I see as a champion for years, whenever he gets the opportunity for the title, he'll win without exaggeration. He was the most exciting fighter to watch with sizzling speed, beautiful boxing combinations, angel. Like kicks, the Dagestani wrestling to back everything up the beat was something special.
Я с самого детства в спорте, да, так сколько я тренируюсь, я не думаю, что эти бойцы 110, 115, я считаю, намного больше, чем они тренируются, и тяжело тренируюсь.
It seemed the future was as bright as it could be, but almost 3 years later, and with no fighting sight, as Zabit Magomedsharipov was in the peak of his career, announced his retirement.
You see Zabit officially retired? That's crazy. You wonder, obviously there's language barriers, so you can't really get like full transparency, but you wonder what exactly it was. Was it religion? Was it, who knows, who knows, he was so fucking good, dude.
What had happened? Did we miss something? The story of Zabit Magomedsharipov will go down in history as the biggest what-if career that never played out, a fighter who seemed to have it all laid out in front of him, now watching his prime years fly in front of his eyes. Just what if? In modern MMA, Dagestani blood is probably the most potent attribute imaginable. Seriously. We've been around here long enough, and we've witnessed it all, seen firsthand what these monsters are capable of.
He's one of Mark Henry's guys down in New Jersey.
Okay, that's good.
And,
I like Mark Henry.
From Dagestan.
Okay, yeah, they're all
where
good.
there's just something in the water over there.
Yeah.
They create
well, they train with bears, right?
Zabit was the guy who set the pace and ushered his brothers in, and they never stopped coming. Islam Makhachev next in line at 155. Omar and Marga made out about 135. Usman over at Bellator, they have pretty much taken over the MMA world at this point. But there was another Dagestani in there, someone who somehow looked more promising than all of them, Zabit Magomedsharipov.
Mark Henry was telling me about this kid a long time ago. And he was telling me, he goes, I got a world champion. He goes, this guy's gonna be a world champion. I was like, wow, and Mark Henry tells you that?
Yeah. No, that's probably gonna happen.
Zabit was not a member of the Nurmagomedov family, nor student of Abdul Manap, but he was born in Dagestan and was blessed with the same sort of savagery. As the rest of them, he didn't venture into mixed martial arts. Just one day, this guy was born into MMA and began training at a very young age. Zabit made his professional MMA debut in 2012. And 5 years later, he was in the UFC with a record of 12-1 by 2017. Habib and Islam had done enough to prove that people from Dagestan were special, wired differently, but this dude was unique, extraordinary. Even a featherweight fighter at 6'1" is a rare sight. And while he was not undefeated, he had a pretty good record. But then he made his UFC debut at UFC Fight Night 115. And with one performance, damn near the entire MMA world became a believer. How can he move and strike like that? The hell? He came from Why Do I Hear Boss Music. He was kind of like the Wonder Boy of 145. But what made him truly terrifying was the fact that as good of a striker he could wrestle and grapple just as effectively. There was a shade of awkwardness to his brilliance. But that made him all the more difficult to comprehend. For the first few fights, Zabit went on the traditional Dagestani warpath and walked through his opponents without many issues, and he made every single one look foolish. Just 2 years into his UFC career, Zabit was already facing a ranked opponent in Jeremy Stevens.
Я всегда согласен. Но сейчас у меня цель пройти это 6-го номера. Потом, надеюсь, доберусь до пояса.
This was his first 2 tests, and for the first 2 rounds the Pakistan fighter did what he always did, mixing up striking and wrestling to perfection. But then the fight moved into the 3rd round. Zabit was slowing down. This never happened to Habib. Islam had tremendous cardio as well. Maybe we had overestimated Zabit.
He was very, very well-rounded. He was a great fighter. Obviously, he just had that issue, that gas tank issue.
Regardless, he won the fight by decision, and the first 2 rounds were nearly flawless. But the talking point coming out of the event was his suspect cardio. Before this, Zabit was considered the uncrowned champion of the featherweight, but now a cardio machine like Max Holloway would simply drown him.
Beat fighting for a world championship with someone like Max, who is coming at you with that kind of a pace. I think you have something very special there to look forward to.
In the fall of 2019, Zabit headlined a fight night in Moscow, and his opponent was top-ranked featherweight Calvin Kattar. Despite being the main event, the fight was scheduled for 3 rounds, and this intensified the discussion and garnered a bit of backlash for his refusal to go all 5. We saw it again. The first 2 rounds, Zabit looked like his usual self, but by the third he had slowed down to the point that Kattar outlanded him 3-1 in total strikes. And while the Dagestani 1 fans were almost sure that if Kattar had 2 more rounds, he would have finished the beat, Zabit was the best fighter in the world, maybe the best of all time, but only for 2 rounds. The mystique around the guy had dwindled, and many were certain he was not going to survive a 5-round fight. November 9th of 2019 was the last we saw Zabit inside the UFC octagon. He had fought fairly consistently before this, but after the win over Kattar, Zabit disappeared. He was briefly linked to a fight with Yo Rodriguez, in the contest was booked for UFC 228, but the fight fell through, and we did not hear from Zabit again. In April 2021, he was removed from rankings due to inactivity, and the chatter began. Some thoughts of Beat was broken by the game. Some insisted that he was training to improve his cardio. A select few suggested that Zabit had retired due to religious reasons.
From what I was told,
He's done.
sounds like he had like almost like this moral religious dilemma that he was dealing with. You know, he's very religious.
Yep.
And I think he reached a point where he just didn't want to do it anymore. Now his brother fights and he corners his brother, which I think is really interesting, but obviously everyone's different. Yeah, but that's what I heard. Like he just reached a point where he's like, no, this isn't for me.
The speculation continued for a while, but eventually my new report made everyone realize he didn't have cardio issues, those were health issues. And just like that, one of the most promising careers in MMA history came to a brew end after the kid, or when that beat, was the 3rd-ranked featherweight in the world. And one more victory he would have received the title shot. The haunting questions began. What if Zabit then suffer health issues? What if he faced Holloway or Waganowski? Just what if?
He might go down as one of the biggest what ifs in UFC history because it looked like the ceiling was so high.
And some glorious alternate reality out there. Zabit is our featherweight champion right now. Finally settled the score with Yair Rodriguez. With both of their styles, this matchup became one of the most popular contests in the history of the sport. Zabit was too much for Yair, though evenly matched up on the feet, but was superior on the ground, and the complete game of Zabit got him the victory.
Zabit Magomedsharipov. Holy shit is this guy.
Now no, one contender, he went on to defeat Alexander the Great himself and defended the titles against the top dogs at 145 pounds. He inspired a whole lot of people from his hometown to pick up enemy gloves, eventually take over the enemy world.
Завидный червяк. Такая изменяешь бой. Куда не цепишься. Своими длинными ногами, руками. Не дает двигаться.
Kind of like right now, different timeline, same result. I said all of that, but I don't know for sure. Maybe Era Max would have drowned him with superior cardio. Maybe Volkanovski would have cracked as a beat puzzle. But one thing for sure, would have been one hell of a sight to see. Hope you enjoyed. I gotta bounce. Catch you all in the next one. Peace out.